Okay. Okay, thank you everyone. Thank you everyone for joining. We're gonna have Elizabeth present in just one moment, but first to introduce her, we're gonna have Serena, Aslan, and Kendra share a couple of notes from the Wildfire Summit. If anyone else has anything to say, please, by all means. The microphone is that black thing right there. We can move it around if you need to, but it's pretty good at picking up as long as you project a little bit. So please.
I mean, I'll start. I don't know. I don't want to put Serena and Kendra on the spot, but we wanted to welcome Elizabeth to our meeting. We love having guests, especially guests who do such amazing work here in the state and on the island. And four of us from Wildfire Safety Advocates of Waikōloa had the honor of attending HWMO's Wildfire Summit 2 weeks ago and learned a lot of amazing information about Firewise, about advocacy, about media, and it was such a rich experience. There was so much information, and I know that we're all really excited to see how we can use that towards the work that we're all trying to do here. So we just wanted to welcome you and thank you for coming, and invited you to so much you can. So we're really here.
Ditto everything that has just said about the summit, but I suppose I would also add, I'm grateful for the things I knew nothing. As obscure as it might sound, I'm now in go places. I'm reading about how these types of programs are so successful in other states that have some of the same problems here and even on them quite frankly. So there were surprises in the information that I was able to do as well. It was good surprise.
I'll just share it's put in perspective how big of an issue this is. I know it was very focused on it was Waikōloa, it was focused on wildfire mitigation, but there's a lot of communities across the state that are struggling with how they think about and prepare for wildfire management. And the networking capability or the opportunities that we had were phenomenal. And there's a lot of organizations that we can tap into in Waikōloa. And I think getting that access to those individuals was really, really helpful. So I think Kendra, Aslan, and myself will probably put together a little bit of write-up for next month of how we're putting this in motion, but it was great. Thank you, Elizabeth, for having us. Yeah.
Oh, Julie has something to say too. So
Aloha. I just like to add that we need to put a big spotlight on the superpowers in the planning department, because for years, they've known about these things, and I think that we need to really uplift them and get them more engaged and involved with the CDP in the planning process, because it was very evident that they were a big, huge superpower, according to the guest speakers at the summit. Thank you.
anything else? Great, without further ado, then let's have Elizabeth. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming and talking to us. It's a big deal. We appreciate it. Just go for it. Sit there, or I can scroll, whatever you want to do.
I do errands better. Can I do that?
Sure, I
Does
think
that work? Okay. So especially after the summit where we really tried to cover a lot. So actually, I'll give some background on that since we just talked about it, but then I'll go through like a normal introduction. But first, thank you for having me. Thank you for setting this up. Thanks for inviting us in to just talk with you, more intimately. I'm grateful to be here. And some background on the Wildfire Summit is that for decades, there have been people worried about wildfire in Hawaii. And it started off with, forestry and wildlife folks who've been dealing with more and more fires coming through, land use changes leading to more ignitions and more fire spread, big fires, lots of little fires. The problem has been growing for a very long time. And there have been a lot of people who have actually been working on this for a long time, but their voices were sort of not strong enough to affect the kind of change at scale that we need, because we were asking for prevention and preparedness and mitigation for something where the worst case scenario hadn't yet happened. And I thought we could make the case that we could prepare, prevent, mitigate, be ready. It's what I've been doing for 18 years with an organization that started 25 years ago with folks who founded it that had been worried about this and working on it for even years before that. And so we're now at a stage where the bad thing has happened. We've had many, many fires. They've been big, they've been devastating, but mostly to the natural resources. So unless you cared about air, water, trees, native ecosystems, it was easy to sort of push off. But now we're in an era in Hawaii and in the country and in the world where wildland fires are not able to stay in wildland environments where people can just shove them off as an environmental issue, because they are now igniting the built environment, which is our urban areas. So, and when that happens, it goes fast because the urban environment is filled with fuel. It's no longer a wildfire. That's a urban fire, you know, and so in our lingo, we call that a conflagration. But the summit was really set up to sort of daylight that, because I think there are a lot of myths to be busted. There's this idea that was a wildfire in Lahaina. That was not a wildfire, that was a city fire. It's just the ignition was a wildfire, but on an 80-mile-an-hour day, that could have been a car fire. It could have been a kitchen fire with one house, and the embers would have done the same exact thing. And so these are like city issues, but also now it's starting to be connected to the wildland environment. And so there's a lot of parts of the system. And so I thought it might be a really good idea to have it where we're all getting together, sort of cross-pollinating, talking about all these different parts of the system. And there's a lot of things that need to happen concurrently. And it takes everybody doing all their different pieces to add up, but we want it to be coordinated. We want it to be collaborative. We want to not compete and duplicate. We want it to make sense and to be doing it so it all jives and has our best possible impact. So the summit, we've had one before. The summit was a hope to kind of start that sort of
changed the Zoom on me.
because there used to be
They changed it from
lots of complacency. Our
last
systems,
month.
our
They have
policies,
it
our
on
funding
Zoom
don't match the level of risk.
Office or something.
And we have a lot of work to do to get it there. That was true before Lahaina, but after Lahaina, everybody started getting really more aware, and we have an energy like never before. And there's a lot of spin out. There's people who've been doing it for years and years who are the choir. There's lots of new people singing, but maybe a different song. There's just like a lot of stuff happening. And we're like, what we've always had in Hawaii, absent of policy, absent of funding, absent of the major broader public caring about wildfire, was like linking arms and doing it together and not running ahead and not duplicating and not competing, but rather we're going to figure this out. We're going to figure it out together, and we're going to pull people in along the way and honor their talents and all the things we can do together to pursue where we need to get to. And I've been worried since Lahaina, because of all of the rapid energetic movement without folks plugging in, without them doing their homework, just running ahead, doing lots of things, and then worrying about how it ties in later. But I think if we could continue to just keep on linking back up, and I see lots of different faces in the room, which is awesome, that's going to be our strongest move forward. And so what I have here put together is not all of that, but that was the genesis of the summit. That's the purpose of the summit. It's the approach of Hawaii Wildfire Management Organization. But instead for this, I just wanted to make sure everybody's aware of the kinds of things that we can contribute as you're all contributing your own parts to all of this. So, click on this. Which one do I click on? Oh, where'd you click?
I just clicked on the background. I think it is.
Oh, I see. Okay. So I don't know if we could like shift that a little bit so you can see, but some just like for those of you who don't know me and don't know Hawaii Wildfire Management Organization, we're a nonprofit organization. We have never had any dedicated funding. We've hustled and sold chili and sold t-shirts, and some of you helped us with, we had someone dancing around in a pepper costume at one point. He might be in this room because, you know, we've done a lot of things to try to hustle to do this because there hasn't been county or state funding ever put into this in Hawaii in a way that's really been able to meet the need. And so we've kind of run this parallel leadership, parallel effort to try to hustle what we need to move things forward, to partner, to build programs, et cetera. And so, but we started just up the road, actually. So our organization, which is now state and Pacific wide, started off at Pu'uva'ava'a. And it was a result of, you know, state got land that they were starting to put together a management plan for. It has a lot of really important habitat, a lot of important ecosystem values. trails, hunting, all sorts of stuff. And so they're putting together this management plan, and there was a side committee that was working on one aspect of that management plan, and it included ranchers, watershed planners, ecological researchers, PTA fire, Army fire, National Park fire, DOFA fire department. It was like a whole group of people. And they were like, well, what are we going to do? We've been noticing fires are happening more frequently in Pu'anahulu and in the neighboring adjacent properties. Who works on that stuff? And the answer was nobody. Fire departments didn't, DOFA didn't. They had 1 3-page trifold prevent wildfire. But nobody had the capacity. There was nobody doing the research. There was no one doing any of that. And so Hawaii Wildfire was sort of founded in that context. And within 2 years, they filed and became a nonprofit. And that all happened around 2000. They were a nonprofit by 2002. And after we started doing work in here, our 2 first projects, one was a research project, Pu'anahulu, looking at different treatments on the landscape to understand how fire burns through and what the best mitigation strategies are. And the second funded project was the fuel break on the power line road, right, Mauka, the village. And that was the only thing that allowed firefighters to get in and ward off that 2005 fire. We had only finished it like a week prior. And so from that time forward, we've done lots of stuff around Waikōloa Village. I've probably presented in this room like 40 times. And so to different groups, to different things, I was like trying to think through, and I'm like, wow, it's been a lot of times I've been in this room. And some of the faces are some of the same and some are different. And so we want to grow and encourage anything in the direction of safety mitigation, especially when it's co-developed and collaborative and plugged into all that is. So we have a long history in this area, but also we started going a little bit north and a little south, and then we went island-wide. We got asked to start working on Maui. Then it just exploded. We went statewide and Pacific-wide at the same time. And in order to do that, because we're the only ones in Hawaii working on this, we reached out to national partners and folks that are doing preparedness, prevention, mitigation work on the continent to make sure we're keeping up with what the best practices are, that we have a community of people doing this kind of work. And so now Hawaii's efforts are strongly tied into national efforts as well. So that said, I have some baseline slides here in case folks are new. I wasn't up today, but we know Hawaii's having increasing fire issues. We know it's because of human-caused ignitions. We know that those are primarily camping and cooking fires, equipment, whether that's power equipment or welders, grinders, hot works. Vehicles start a lot of fires from accidents and traffic accidents, and also just from idling on dry grass, and people drive away and don't even realize it. And then many of our grasses actually ignite from radiant heat. You don't even need a catalytic converter. You don't need a spark. It's just the heat. Because most of the grasses you see around here are African prairie grasses that love fire and regenerate after fire. Thanks to fire, they want to burn. So they're sitting there and they're very easily ignited. And when those fires spread and are able to rapidly progress in wildland areas, they can ignite the urban or the built environment and then travel through those. And so in each of those, like the 3 areas, there is work to be done. There is ignition reduction we need to do. We need campfire safety. We need fireworks safety. We need hot work.
Jesus.
There's a lot. We need
I didn't know I was on camera. I'm
dry
like
grass. We
doing
need
my
better
toes
roadside,
and
areas for
doing
people
a
to go
beaver.
garden.
I need to sit in the
Every
chair.
single one of those has stuff that we can be working on to reduce ignitions.
I'm online.
We have a lot of
I
work to
didn't
do
know I
on
had-
land management. We know that land use is a huge driver. Land use changes is a huge
Myself.
driver to why our ecosystems have changed. And the fire risk has
Yes,
literally
muted, yeah.
thrown in around unprepared communities that weren't designed or built at a time when fire was the biggest risk. And so that changes in landscape is a big contributor. But even still yet, no matter how much you manage the land, and manage it is not just fuel breaks and fire breaks and weed whacking. This is like a return to active management, active use of the land. So if we are farming and ranching and restoring and doing conservation and restoration activities, all of those things are risk reduction activities, and we can advocate for those. Better use of land, more value-added benefits, community-added benefits, bike paths and gardens and restoration and conservation. All those things are fire risk reduction. It doesn't just have to be a conversation about fuel breaks or weed whacking. There's a lot of things we can do in the landscape. And then there's a ton of stuff we need to do around the built environment. And for those who went to the summit, we focused a lot on that because across the state and since Lahaina, I think I might have accidentally contributed to the problem. Everybody's freaked out about the wildland risk and about the grass and about trees and about all this stuff on the larger landscape. That's true because wildfires spread through there. We've been singing that song for 25 years. That is an issue. We have to actively manage, restore, and have thriving watershed function and healthy ecosystems. What is new is that it's entering into our very underprepared built environment. And I wish I rolled out after Lahaina talking about this as a system, but I didn't. I'm a natural resource manager. I'm a forester by training. I'm a wildland firefighter. That is where all of my training lies. And that is what rolled off my tongue. And some of my colleagues continue to just talk grass and the wildland side of things, because that's what we've always done. But now that we're in an era where it's entering the built environment, it's a huge gap. We don't have the policies, the codes, all of that stuff that supports a safer built environment. And so that is why we focus the summit on, is there something I can do?
No, I was muting.
Oh.
So someone was making sounds in
Oh,
the
got it.
chat that they were unmuted. So
Okay.
I was trying to, they couldn't hear on Zoom.
So our goal of the summit was to like daylight some of those things that haven't gotten all the attention. We need our planning departments involved. We have all of the volunteer programs for dealing with the residential and built environment, but we also have people who aren't engaged. We need codes. We need standards. They need to match our level of risk. In order to get that, we need our fire department and planning departments to have the capacity to enforce that. We need the carrots, we need the sticks, we need planning, we need advocacy, we need all these different parts of the system. I wish so much I'd rolled out that. But I'm learning too. You know, we are in this, and it has always been wildland fires. Paradise Burn, the Marshall Fire in Colorado, Santa Rosa, you name it. These fires are entering our urban environments, and that is where all the damage and the heart-wrenching sort of disaster is happening. Some of us were already crying about birds and trees and water, but not everybody. But everybody's crying when they lose their towns and their families. And so now this is kind of like an everyone situation. So I already went through this. It's just my habit on that last slide, but we know that we can reduce human-caused ignitions. This needs to be front and center. It's not part of enough of the conversations. We have fireworks issues, people. We have arson issues. We have hot works and people using equipment on windy days. People don't realize what a red flag warning is, and that a red flag warning isn't that much different than the day before it, and fire can still travel even when it's not a red flag warning. We have very poor campfire use. I have burned my own feet, and my son has burned his head in hot coals on the beach that just looked like sand, but it was ash. We have issues with how we deal with fire and heat and things that we never had to think about before that just seem kind of like part of our everyday. We have a lot of work to do in that regard. And that's kind of education. We have a lot of myth busting to do where it's not just the west sides or the dry sides of every island that's burning. We are having fire ignitions on every side of every island that are requiring a fire department response. And when the conditions are right, wildfires can ignite and burn like anywhere. So we're lucky because most of the time those other sides are wet and they don't go that far. But if they burn, they can burn fast and hot and far because the vegetation is so much denser on those sides. And we're having an increased experience of drought episodes and drying out periods. And so that is actually a thing that we need to have on our radar.
You mean vulnerable in that last statement, right?
Yes, although, you know, there are also venerable. Yes. That's funny. I fixed that in a different slide deck, but not that one. So one thing Hawaii Wildfire has done, because we were alone in this for so long, was to reach out to our national partners. So we reached out to NFPA. What do you have that can help support communities and residents who want to take care of the home and yard zone and encourage people, not through sticks, but through love and potlucks and the building of community around this issue in a positive light. And they said, well, Firewise is it. And we had some fits and starts with other folks who came in and contracted and started Firewise stuff, but none of them stuck. And then we reignited that program, and it has been a really beneficial thing to support folks who want to do work around their homes and yards and rally their neighbors to do that. We have adapted the National Ready, Set, Go materials for Hawaii. And that's really important because a lot of people think that in Hawaii, we had a history, especially in Waikōloa Village, actually, of people thinking, I'm just going to water my roof and I'm going to stay late in the game and I don't have to evacuate early. But we learned our lesson actually from Australia, where their policy was they had codes and standards and everyone had to be perfectly fire-wise. And they said, since you have that, you can stay and defend, which means you can stay and protect your property because it's most likely to survive a fire. But then there were mega fires where giant fires all joined each other and there was no air to breathe and there was no way out and there was no way to get out of roads because of smoke, and hundreds of people lost their lives. And from that, they said, you know what, up until a certain size fire, stay and defend can work if the whole neighborhood is ember resistant. But at a certain point, those giant fires just consume everything, no matter what you do. And that's just physics. And so the International Association of Fire Chiefs created the Ready, Set, Go program, which is do everything you can to be ready, harden your home, deal with your yard, work with your community, make your family evacuation plan, practice it, and then leave early. Don't wait. Don't be a late evacuee. Like, leave early even before you're even told, because then you avoid traffic. You keep the roads clear for emergency responders. You're not using water that they need. Just get out early. And so we adopted that in 2012, and then we've been updating it, but it's connected to this lessons learned globally and to our national partners. We're part of the Fire Adapted Communities Learning Network, which actually has a listserv of like, I think it's like 70 or 80,000, but Hawaii and Hawaii Wildfire is one of like 15 or 16 key partners. And as we're doing this work, we're kind of workshopping it with each other for best practices across the country and then sharing that out with this huge group of folks. And so we kind of found our people, and that's what supported all the programs that we've been able to do. So we've been tied into the National Cohesive Wildland Fire Management Strategy. We have the Pacific Fire Exchange, which is developing best available Hawaii and Pacific specific fire and practitioner related information. And so we partner with University of Hawaii to do that. That's in its 13th or 14th year. But same thing, not enough researchers were really interested in fire. And since Lahaina, everyone at the university wants to like do fire. And so that is starting to blossom as well. And we'll finally have some locally based focused research to answer some of the questions we haven't been able to answer, because even the researchers weren't that into it. And now they are. And that's like economic researchers, social science, in addition to ecological and other folks. You know, we have urban and regional planning. Finally, like widespread system-wide research, university interest in engaging in this issue. But we have long had the Joint Fire Science Program, knowledge exchange, funding, trying to help us promote that in Hawaii, and offering conversations between researchers and folks on the ground doing work so that we can optimize. If we are going to do these mitigation measures, how can we best do it to optimize for protection, for ecosystem restoration, for whatever it is. And so there's a lot of really cool stuff coming out of our Pacific Fire Exchange now. And then of course, like we've been serving as a community navigator to help people figure out if and how to apply for grants and how to deal with the federal grant system, because we don't have local, county or state mitigation funds, but there are some federal funding opportunities and we want to support our partners to apply for them. Anywhere? Okay. So just some things in case as you start to move through your world and your work, if you want to know what's available, we have Kaleo the Pueo is our Hawaii mascot for wildfire prevention. He is friends with Smokey, but he is a Pueo. And he's available if you want him to show up places. You can see that. I think that was from the Hulu Holo Holo, wasn't it? That's a picture from that? Or maybe it's Dry Forest? I can't remember. Really festival. I knew he was around here. Anyway, so we do assemblies, we do lots of K through 12 education. We have activity books, we have event things that like just the basic stuff, that conventional materials for youth. And we also have a K through 12 curriculum. It's better really K through 8, but if you do classroom work, we have hands-on activities, we can support teachers. We do it ourselves and we pass it around for other people to do. So you can know that. I talked about the Ready, Set, Go, International Association of Fire Chiefs resource. This actually was the first effort where every single fire agency in Hawaii came together to have the same messaging, the same prevention materials, the same resource. So every fire department, DOFA, federal, in the state, it was part of Ready, Set, Go and making it Hawaii specific. And now I think Dana and Shelley, you brought some. So if you're not familiar with that, they're over there. Then each dry season we have, we started in 2016. We've launched a statewide wildfire drought lookout campaign, which we could use your help with because it's never been funded, but we have something like 47 maybe agencies and partners in local community groups that push out social media messages, fact sheets, tips like tip number 22, this is how you can, that kind of stuff. And so we launch with a press conference, we move it island to island, but really we rely on all our partners to get all of those tips and things out, our elected officials, we send all that information ahead of time. So you can kind of be alerted to that to try to help get all that message out. And what's cool about this is they're vetted messages that have been vetted through our fire science researchers, every single fire department, et cetera, so that we all feel really solid about what those tips are. So we'll launch again in June. We were doing it in May to coincide with Wildfire Preparedness Month. But then it's a little too early because our fire frequency starts to pick up later in June and into September. So on the continent, May works as a preparedness thing. And we still rally folks around May to just do their work. But this launch is starting to happen later to kind of coincide with people not writing it off. Because when it's still raining, it's hard to like take it seriously. We have our home assessment program. We have Firewise. We have Firewise representatives in here. Waikōloa has been really active, and we've appreciated that because when it wasn't active, we were panicking and trying to raise awareness. And so it's been really awesome to have community members and residents step up and see if they could rally other folks and really start to work on that. The neighbor to neighbor peer assistance, learning, training, and action. And then the home assessment program we've just piloted it. You know, we have fits and starts with our funding, but we really have appreciated the opportunity to bring in the assessing structural ignition potential for wildfire. It's a terrible name, home ignition zone kind of training. So we can do educational walkarounds and offer that kind of like peer-to-peer, assessment of your homes. And if you haven't had one, you really should, because as much as we want to look over the fence and blame everyone and be mad, we also have to model what wildfire safety looks like. We can show people through our own actions. We can prioritize that as much as we prioritize all the other big things we need to do. So I encourage everybody to just get an assessment because it's valuable and you learn the tips and tricks and then you can share them with other people too, which is awesome. So we have a lot of communities across the state who are participating in this. At this point, I think we're pushing 40 communities across the state, which is really cool. It doesn't mean you've made it. It doesn't mean that you're perfect. It doesn't mean you've gotten it all done and you're totally safe. It means you've acknowledged you have an issue and you're starting to work with your neighbors and residents to do the parts that you actually have immediate control of. Tonight, when you go home, you can sweep. You know, it's like the immediate stuff you can already reduce risk, and it's part of what needs to happen as part of that bigger package of all the activities that need to take place. So I already talked about home assessments, but this, just to tell you a little bit about where it's headed. Now we have all this national interest. We have national partners working to build the capacity to do this better and better and to tie it into changes in codes. Maui is having a significant changes at the county level to their vegetation management and other codes. And so we're tying in the home assessments to be educational also about code changes and how to meet those. And so we have lots of partners now working toward blossoming out this program to make that peer-to-peer sharing and compliance all tied together, which is really powerful. And then you probably know this, but maybe not. But one of the most important tools for lots of diverse folks coming together to learn about and figure out, to learn about fire, to take action, to coordinate with each other is through the Community Wildfire Protection Plan process. It's not a plan, and community doesn't mean neighborhood community. It means the bigger community of all kinds of people. But what we call them CWPPs, and what those are for is really like a coming together and a shared identification of values, concerns, priority actions, that then everyone's supposed to be chipping away at and working on. It doesn't come with funding. These plans are not plans like this is what will happen, but rather it's a clearinghouse of hazard assessment information, fire history information, who's who, who's doing what does everybody care about? And we workshop these pretty significantly so that all the ideas of everybody are in the plans, but we actually have like sticker voting and all of those workshopy things so that we can let the priorities shift up or sift through, and we know what the most people care about, so that we can see like, well, that would be a lot of bang for the buck because a lot of people care about that. Because fire impacts so many different parts of the system that what you decide to protect is value-based. Do you protect your forest? Do you protect your homes? Do you only protect your own property? Do you only protect your own community? There's a lot of wiggle room in this to figure out like, what are you going to focus on? And the CWPPs kind of help filter that and figure out where a lot of people care about and what we should take action on. The ones that are coming up, we have been funded by a Community Wildfire Defense Grant to update all of Hawaii Island's plans, but all that is frozen. So stay tuned. So I hope we can do that. We'll let you know when it happens though, and you guys can all come and engage and we can do it together. The last thing is just that we have developed tons of stuff. We have things for planners, for landscapers, for kids and for all sorts of different sectors and interests and scientists, you name it. While nobody was caring, we're like, someday they might, someday they might, someday they might. And then my own personal story I shared at the summit was that I went on my first long vacation ever. And my first day back was August 7th, 2023. And on my vacation, I decided I was done trying to shout from the roofs about something that nobody cared about, because at that point I was 16 years in. And then we had so many big fires here, I didn't even know about Lahaina until the next day. And then by the end of the week, I had a camping mat I still have it in my office. And I couldn't believe that like everybody was asking, and what we were able to give and provide, nobody could have done overnight. It took us 23 years to make all of that. And finally, all these people wanted it. And it's like, we've seen movement like we've never seen before. And we just don't want that to end. So I'm so happy that you guys are engaged and working on things, because this is a long game. This is like a forever lifestyle, how we live, how we use our landscapes kind of situation. And but we've worked really hard to support that in all the ways that we know how to. So use it is what I'm saying. I talked about the Pacific Fire Exchange. We have a lot of basic science kind of information on trends and patterns of fire, on wildfire occurrence, on what we're looking at when it comes to climate, on best practices for mitigation. So Pacific Fire Exchange is branded because of the way it's funded, but it is underneath Hawaii Wildfire, and we co-manage it with the university. It has its own website though. And then just saying that like what we've always had that I alluded to in the beginning was partnerships, and doing it together and listening to each other and doing it with care. And like, we are in this community together. Our kids are in it together. We're working on it together. It's really a together thing, because there's all these parts that need to take place, but it makes more sense when it's coordinated. And so when we first started, no one talked to each other, and everybody was just, because they weren't focused on wildfire. But at least what we have going now is 20 years of relationship development, so that what we do can make sense, so that we can call each other up. Even Big Island is so lucky, because same time we founded Hawaii Wildfire, I say we, I wasn't here, but I came in 7 years later, and the Big Island Wildfire Coordinating Group was just getting started. We have something special, which is that because of that collaboration, in 22 years, I think not a single meeting has been missed or rescheduled or, disappeared off the calendar. Every 2 months, we all meet, and every fire service is represented. And because of that, our council person should close their ears. They're like, we'll deal with bills later. We're going to help each other no matter what. And the other islands don't have that. They're like, well, procurement, and you have to activate and here everyone's in. And everyone helps, and everybody shows up, and like, I can make a case that impacts state land, and I can make a case that impacts PTA, so I can show up and help. And that is not because of bureaucracy or rules or laws or policies. That is because of friendships, and because we're all in on this, and we've all been doing it a long time. And that's something I'm like really scared is going to like fly away into the way other states have it, where that doesn't exist. and there's egos and there's bureaucracy and there's like infighting because everyone thinks they can do it better. So I just want to share this, that this has like been a beautiful part of the success of what's happened pre-Lahaina, that if we can find a way to maintain that, that's going to be really important. And it's not just among the fire service, it's among all kinds of people, among our community groups, our natural resource management groups. The bottom picture is in Waianae at Ka'ala Farm. We have Hawaiian cultural practitioners with fire and elected officials and teachers and natural resource managers. It's like the everyone thing is a really solid way to move forward, because then when the watershed partnership is trying to plant their fuel break, they have the kids at the school like growing the seeds, and those seeds are supplied by forestry and wildlife, who has the money because the elected officials made sure they had it. And so when it's all worked together like this, actually a lot of progress can be made. That's just an example, but you see what all this. Okay, so I just want to leave it with this, like big picture, zoom out. What do we need? It's a system. There's a million components. We have lots of diagrams on that if you want to see. But a good way to think about it, which also aligns with the National Cohesive Strategy, which was an attempt to give us a shared language, a shared set of goals as we move forward, is this. We need fire adapted communities. And what that means is we need the built environment to be able to resist fire unassisted. We need to be able to withstand ember attacks from nearby wildfires and fire ignition from nearby house fires. So we need proper, evacuation. We need proper building materials. We need codes and standards. We need people who know how to not start fires, people who are going to evacuate early. We need people who are part of the solution. We need home ignition zones cleaned up. We need yards maintained. We need all of that, all the people part of things. Fire adapted communities isn't just the residential, it's all of the policies and the funding as well. So we need all of that stuff. We need resilient landscapes. We need landscapes that are actively managed, because when they're not managed, they are a fire risk, but they don't spontaneously combust. They're not the thing to freak out about. The thing is, they're just the bridge. We have ignitions and we have a built environment that is loaded with more fuel than what's in a grassy field. So we do have to manage our landscapes, but we have to manage our ignitions and we have to reduce the risk in our built environments. But on that landscape side, anything we do besides leave it unattended is already fire risk reducing. So we have lots of options for that, whether it's farming or ranching or restoration or community gardens or bike paths or other kinds of uses. There's value to every single one of those. And really the lowest action is fuel breaks and weed whacking. Like what we really want is a thriving landscape that supports our water, supports our health, supports food, all of that sort of stuff. And so that's like a way to think about it. This isn't just about fuel breaks and fuels management. This is about like restoring the function of our landscapes to actually provide. Then we need a safe and effective emergency response. We don't have adequate water. We need to build water resources. We need to build firefighter access. We need training, wildland fire specific training and equipment. We need to make sure that we understand that firefighters show up as the last line of defense. They're not the answer. And in significant events, they will be quickly overwhelmed. So we cannot think that we're going to have firefighters come and save our specific house. We need our house to survive itself. But we also need to make sure that they're safe and that they have what they need to do the best job they can in a place they didn't design, they didn't build, they're not in charge of maintaining, etc. And then we really need to help shift this culture to one of collaboration, preparedness, reducing risk, living like we have the wildfire issue that we do. Like what we have faced up until recently is complacency and like, it just burns the grass and the grass comes right back. There's issues with that too, but we won't go there because that's the natural resource side of things. But really, like we are not totally as a people and as a state living like wildfire matters. And now people are like so excited and enthusiastic and scared and motivated. But a lot of folks haven't been doing their homework and building on what came before. But there's been a lot of hard work that's been done before. And if it looks like it's not that much, it's because it's never been able to be at scale because the top down wasn't supportive of it. So anything we've been able to make happen, which I celebrate, has been that linking of arms and the relationships and the hustling for competitive monies. But those are some of the things that I think we can work together to unstick as we move forward so that we have bottom up, top down, side to side, all over. We just live like this matters. So with that, we had this amazing Hawaiian high schooler artist give us a vision for like, if we were having the thriving landscapes and thriving people, what would that look like? And this is her interpretation. So it's what we're rolling with as our vision. And so thank you for having me. Thank you for letting me spout off all that stuff. And then I'm really happy to hear about the work that you guys are working on. And I hope that we can be a part of it. So there's the office phone number, and I'm one of 2 co-directors, and so you can get to us at that email. Yep.
Chat things. Anyone have any questions? We have
5 minutes per question. We do have the reservoir thing for people. I don't think get through as well, but I don't know if for a few minutes of questions or comments.
Have the lights back on too.
Yeah.
I wanted to thank you for your hard work.
Oh,
Clearly, you've devoted your heart and soul to this, and I want to thank you for
Oh.
that.
thank you.
I'm fairly new to the area, from places that have been heavily at risk from experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as I'm sure you know, our major concern here is that we get another road
Mhm.
so that we can get out of here.
Mhm.
So when our lives are in danger, when our children's lives are in danger, when our babies' lives are in danger, when our handicapped people's lives are in danger,
Mhm.
older people who can't move. So I'm wondering how you can support us with that.
Well, we're advocating for emergency egress roads all across the state. 2/3 of our communities are in your situation, and they don't even have the single lane bumpy emergency exit that you even have. They are like locked in. And so we're like, all right, at least you have something, but we need to do more. We always need to do more, and you're not alone. So the role that we're playing is at the state level, trying to have these conversations with the Office of Planning, with our county planning departments. Like there needs to be massive investments in retrofits and in secondary or tertiary egress. We're also working with developers, trying to get in so that they just do the right thing, whether that's a code or standard or an expectation or not. And then we've been like edging our way into the land use planning firms and urban and regional planning at UH, because it's an issue all over. So anything that we develop that's like the general, this really matters, we can share that with you so that you can use that as why this is really important. And you're doing it at the local level, but we're trying to support it at the big picture level. Yeah.
Anyone else have anything to add? There's a question in the chat, someone dealing with them, condos in Waikōloa. Since there are so many condo complexes, is someone dealing with them? I don't know what that means. What is that? Can you expand on that? Can we hear her? Is she talking?
Can you hear me?
Natalie, are you saying something?
Yes, can you hear me?
Let's try again, Natalie.
Can you hear me?
I
Yes.
can now, yes. We can.
Yay! Okay, well, thank you so much for coming. It was very informative. I'm a part-time resident there, and obviously very concerned about the situation. But we are one of several condo complexes in Waikōloa Village. And I have no idea if any of this information is getting to the complexes themselves as a whole. I know that in our condo complex, I have been passing on information from the meetings or if letters need to be written, but I don't know if that's an active pursuit of anyone else.
Sure, I'll strike on that one. So yeah, so the question was, the condo complexes how we're gonna reach the condo complexes. There's all these complexes out there. We've been doing a lot of outreach through the WVA. I would say most people here are WVA, not everyone I know for a fact. Some people are Paniolo Estates, and like you, Natalie, are in the condos. A lot of the condos are in the WVA as well. Not all of them are, but many of them are. And there's also another major group that we aren't tapping into, and it's all of the people that live in the workforce housing around the village. And the short answer is yes, we'd be happy to email anyone or go knock on doors. We just don't know the people. We don't know them yet. So if anyone's willing to step up and start doing that more, that'd be awesome. Natalie, if you're doing it yourself, that's amazing. And if you have contacts, that'd be great. I know that other people here know people. We'd be happy to do that. I don't know.
I'm just
If that's
wondering
something to
if it
say.
can,
Sorry, yeah, Dana and Shelley. Natalie, which complex do you live in?
I live in the villas.
The
And
villas.
so, yes, the villas
This one right
on
Right.
Luakula.
Well, Shirley and I are home assessors, but we also have assessed condos and their associations, so it needs to start with engagement at the management and the
Yeah,
and the board level. So we've done maybe 3 or 4, I want to say, condo associations in terms of assessment. Waikōloa Hills, Ilimamani, what's the oldest one down here at the last? No.
Paniolo Greens? No.
Yeah, condos.
Oh.
Waikōloa Village condos,
Not sure.
which is right before you go around the circle
Okay.
at the end here. So, but after doing the assessment and giving a report, then typically what happens is the board learns about the report and then they decide how they're gonna take action. So it's always, that's always the process.
Mhm.
But in terms of who's taking care of condos for mitigation, it's kind of up to the board and how they deliver the message to their landscapers and their gardeners and people who do the work.
Mhm.
Like condos, they did a lot of work. I mean, there's still a lot of work to be done.
Sure.
And even, you know, Mike, who's now the manager up there at Waikōloa, Hills, has done a lot of work after we let
That's
them
right.
know what are the concerns in terms of their concerns and what we see as assessors
Mhm.
and how they can retrofit or landscape, or sometimes they call it firescaping.
Yeah.
Part of that, so there's a lot of that going on, but we would be happy for anyone to reach out to us. Through HWMO and let us know if a condo association would like to have, you know, an assessment.
And Andrea just wrote in the chat that she was sharing it with Paniolo Club too. And so Natalie, to answer your question, the people who've been doing it thus far are Shelley and Dana, and the people that live in the condos. But we'd be more than happy to have extra help on that.
Well,
regard. So
I
if you
guess-
want to throw your
I
hand up
guess-
and start sending some stuff around, we would not say no to that.
I guess what I'm getting at is that all of these complexes have property management, like for the complex. And that's the way the information should be getting to the condo owners. And I don't know that that's happening. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
Natalie, we're trying as much as we can. If we
Yeah.
just don't know everyone, we're
That's
just
my
learning and
problem,
meeting people
yeah.
as we go along. So if you can pass
Exactly.
along the different groups, that'd be awesome.
well, if somebody can pass on the information to me, like the different management of the condominiums, I would be happy to reach out to them. But I have no way of knowing, you know, all of them.
Well, in that process, she can reach out directly to us, and then she can give us
Yeah.
the contact and we can reach.
Yeah, Natalie, we appreciate that. I don't think the problem is finding someone to talk to them. It's literally finding the actual contact information for the management companies.
Yeah, exactly. That's my problem. I don't know. I don't even know all the names of all the condo complexes.
Yeah.
to do
Yeah, we're
that.
trying. We're getting there. Well, we're not.
No, I
quite there
know.
yet,
No,
but
no,
thank you
no.
for
I
calling that out.
appreciate everything we do.
Every time we've done an assessment, usually members of the board, at least, or at least 2 members of the board have accompanied us,
Mhm.
along with the property manager and anybody else who's interested.
Sure.
So they all get to hear
Yeah.
Can you tell me more about how that goes when you do it? Like, what's their receptivity? How does that go?
it. They have to deal with the board, and we all understand that.
Yeah. Yeah,
So as we go around the buildings, we'll take one or two buildings in the complex, like Illimani is huge.
yeah. I used to live there, full disclosure. I lived there a long time.
We'll walk around and we'll point out what we think is high risk. And then, usually the property manager's taking notes, but and he'll say, well, I know the person that lives there, and they are cutting down that tree, even though it's hanging on the roof.
Mhm.
But we're like, well, we're gonna put it in the report, and what you do with it is up to your board and your owners.
I
But-
just think that
We've been very receptive.
It's just working through the processes of the board or powers
Yeah.
that be.
The facts,
I-
what they do with them.
Yeah.
I'm
And
not
so just
talking
as a
about
note to that, I'm
Oh,
talking
sorry,
about her.
Natalie, what were you gonna say?
Sorry, I'm not talking about the actual assessment and the work on the property and all of that. I'm talking about like the letter campaign that we just did for a push of the letter campaign to get
Sure.
everybody
Talking
on
about a
board.
letter
with
Oh, like
campaign.
letter campaigns and like our advertising stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, I hear you.
exactly.
We actually don't do that through the WVA at all. We don't do that through any associations.
I
They don't
know.
forward our messages on. We just send it out to anyone in the community.
Well, if there's anybody at the meeting that knows the name of the complexes or has, information of how to contact their board or their management company, I would be happy to reach out to them
excellent.
and
Okay, well-
whatever.
Okay, we'll try and share it. It's very difficult for us to hear you in the room.
Oh,
Thank you so
sorry.
much, Natalie.
Of course.
Okay. Okay, yes, Mary, Kathy, sorry.
Management companies like Associate and whoever else, if you reached out to them and say, we are a resource, because the board changes every year.
Yes, they do.
And so, and I'm at the point, and we don't have a manager. So therefore, you're relying totally on volunteers, but at least somebody said, well, how do I reach out? If Associate is our manager, at least that they say, these are the contacts, this is the information, but there are probably, several that manage all these condominiums.
Mm.
And, they might be a central point that individuals could reach out.
Sure. Okay, were you gonna say something, Julia? Yes.
Yeah, I think all the HOAs statewide and all the areas that are affected wildfire communities. They need to ring the alarms and try to rein in. I know for 7 years I was on the wildfire committee here in Waikōloa. And there was a lot of reticence with our HOA trying to talk people into as you're getting your house updated or, like do renovations on to make sure that you include or try to get them to consider wildfire or, windows and doors and
Yeah.
roofs and
Yeah,
and there's just reticence. They don't want to do it because they don't want to tell people what to do. But
yeah,
and that falls in line with what the county codes should be
yeah,
and Epic and and our county counselors here. So he's sure all here. But it's all the
Yeah.
conflagration
yeah,
that is causing it. And the HOAs are sitting there, they're just twiddling their thumbs and
yeah.
just the other way.
And if I could comment, it's like we could really use some advocacy and some myth busting around codes and standards because especially since you're in the room, there is some of the reticence to have the codes and standards that actually address these risks that we face are being avoided because there's a fear that like, well, we could never enforce that from the fire department and planning department. Kauai is using their planning department to enforce fire code because fire doesn't have capacity. Good start, but ours, no one else is moving in that direction. However, that is actually like saying that the police would be responsible if they didn't catch the person speeding who caused the accident. So the police are not on the hook to catch every single violator of speed limits. And fire code works the same way. It sets a baseline standard for safety, and you can have it elevated in areas with elevated risk. And we shouldn't be afraid of having codes and standards that actually meet our risk, but you'll hear over and over again, we don't have the capacity to do that. But since this is an advocacy group, we need actually some myth busting on that regard, which is that we can educate and set a standard. And then there may be enforcement in certain areas and maybe not, and we can build toward that. But we don't have to have codes driven by capacity or driven by what capacity we used to have. we should have codes and standards that are driven by public safety and by the needs we have. And so I think there's a lot of learning going on across the state and at the county level and state fire council and fire departments about what codes and standards really could look like. So just putting that out there, that like the more people who understand that, I think the better road we can take towards those standards.
That's great. Yes.
Say that all those condos have been assessed higher insurance rates.
That's true.
So if the policy could be set that we are more fire preventive and show that to the insurance companies, maybe that would help reduce their rates. And maybe you could go from that aspect to setting up these standards of how the fire prevention groups and, you know, whatever, just to put that out there to help them. It's back to the insurance that we are prepared and you do have things in place to help us.
It's a really important idea to move forward. And unfortunately, the insurance market is on this precipice at the moment. So it may not be that you get a deduction. It may mean that you actually can get insured. And so the conversation is changing away from reductions just to like, you might actually get be able to acquire insurance if you've done these risk reduction measures.
Oh.
We're at that kind of stage in the insurance game at this point.
Fun thing about, well, not fun thing about insurance, but yesterday, literally, I made a connection with the Hawaii Insurance Bureau. I had a good half-hour conversation with one of the people over there, and they're going to come present at our meeting in September, and they're going to walk us through how the whole thing works. There's actually a system to it that I didn't understand until yesterday. So we'll have an opportunity to learn. I can give you a top level overview. Okay, we need to move on with our agenda because we actually have a lot of other things, but we do have a whole talk story section where we'll catch back up on things. So I'm just going to start blitzing through and we're going to go and have questions as we go on. First up, the mayor did submit his capital improvements budget on March 1st to the county council. And it did not include any money for the road in it. And I know we had a big letter writing campaign that got sent out requesting that. That does not mean that it will not be in the county budget eventually. We will be having conversations once again with our fine council member about that process as we go forward. And there's space for that to happen down the road, but it was not in it. So just letting everyone know that, and that's a thing that's going on. The second sort of top level issue. Yes. Do you want to add something to that, Bob? Yeah, you go.
Yeah, I think there's some information. Because we've got the mayor coming next Wednesday. He's going to be here doing a talk story. We talked last month about preparing for that. We didn't know then whether or not the road was going to be in the budget or not. Now we do know it's not in the budget. But since the last meeting, we've sent the mayor two letters that you should be aware of. We've posted them on our website so you can see them. The second, we copied the village board with the first letter, and I presented at the village board meeting last month and asked the board to stand with us, and they did. They wrote a very strong letter to the mayor on behalf of the village. This is the first time that the board has really stepped up in a long time to take a strong, clear position on the fact that the village needs the second road. And so one of the things that I did, because when we were looking at the general plan didn't have any priorities set in it. It identified 7 roads for the Waikōloa area altogether, and it didn't identify any one of them as a priority. But the language in the general plan did say that priorities normally are set through the community development plan process and not in the general plan itself. So one of our concerns was, the general plan didn't have priorities set. But I went back and looked at the community development plan for the village, which was adopted in 2008. Right, just 3 years after the 2005 fire, which burned right up to the village boundary on the Maka side. And that really kicked the whole process into gear. People were upset, they were very concerned, and the planning department did its job. Julia made a comment before about we need to engage the planning folks. They actually did their job. The community development plan for the village has a statement in it that's as strong as anything we could have asked for. If we wrote it today, we couldn't do a better job. It says that lives are at risk from fire coming into the village and that we cannot escape on the one road that we have. We desperately need a second road. And it was described in the plan as, quote, a very high priority. You know, there's no other planning document I've seen that uses that language. So it's in there. And the second letter that we sent to the mayor, which was just Friday, was after we learned that his budget does not include the second road. And I prepared a report for him of all the planning history behind the road. So that document now is also posted on our website. And we sent it to him as a reminder that the county did decide that we were at extreme risk from fire burning into the village and that we had to have a second road. And that we wanted him to make sure that while he was mayor, that this is going to get done. So that's basically our ask in the second letter, because he came here in the fall. He agreed that this was a high priority for him. And so we're asking him to please commit to get this done during this term, this mayor. And that's the message that we want to deliver as a community next Wednesday when he's here. You know, we can't fault him for anything that hasn't happened since 2008. But it's now 20 years since the 2005 fire. And since then, we had a fire in 2018. We had a fire in 2021 that had an evacuation order. We had 2 fires that we could see out the window 2 years ago. So the fires are happening more often now. You know, 2018, 2021, 2023, and they're more extreme. They're more intense, they cover more area, and so our risk keeps growing. And the other piece of the puzzle is the population in the village. Right now, we're up to 7,500. When the community development plan was written, we only had 5,000. And we're now having enough new development happening that before the end of this decade, we'll be up to 10,000. And the planned build out in the planning documents for the village is 22,000. So we're adding workforce housing at the end of Paniolo. These are young families with children. We're putting them at the most risky place in the whole area, the farthest from the road. And that's where we need to have the new road. So, you know, our job now, all of us together, is to talk to our neighbors, our friends, and folks at church, wherever, and ask them to come join us next Wednesday. So the mayor clearly gets the message. This is our priority. We don't have to wait for new planning, Julia. It's all there. It's all there.
Say thank you to everyone who wrote letters by my count. We got somewhere between 80 and 100 letters to the mayor. She's really fantastic. And I know it's, at least for me, I don't want to speak for everyone, it's disheartening to see that it wasn't in the budget. And so we just want to ask you again, just one more time, to come to the mayor's event on the 19th. Unfortunately, Matt and I won't be able to be there, so we need everyone there. And I don't think it's appropriate for us to commandeer the meeting because there are a lot of other issues in Waikōloa Village, and it should be a holistic conversation for the whole community. But I do think it's okay not to let anyone's feet off the fire and make sure everyone in the room, including HWMO senior leadership, hears how important this is. And we hear multiple people ask relevant questions, not when will we get a road? That's not really good question to ask, but to just sort of ask about funding and specifics.
Well, will he get it done while he's mayor?
Yeah.
This term? He's now the 4th mayor we've had since this went into the plan. And I also want, before I finish, I'm about to finish, but I want to thank James specifically. He met with us yesterday. We talked through a couple of strategies for getting the funding into the budget. He's got some ideas, and I'll leave it to him to share whatever he wants to share, but he may not want to share all the details at this point because it's, we're not sure what's going to work. But we really need his help, and we are fortunate to have a councilman who's working with us. And I thank you, Jen.
Can I just add in a little bit? Let's move the microphone so people can hear you.
Can I just ask a question real quick?
Yes, please.
While you're getting that set up. So it's concerning to me, I was one of the people who wrote a letter, and it's concerning to me that he received that many letters. I didn't even get a formulated reply, such as what I would get and what I am getting every day now, by the dozens from my congresspeople. So I didn't even get recognition that I had written a letter. That doesn't sit well with me.
Yep.
And so I know you're asking us to be polite to him. I do my best to be polite, but I am angry.
I think it's okay to be angry. I feel angry too. I don't think I think we should always show up with respect and a little thoughtful
Of
ways.
course,
But we're angry. All of us in this room who want a second road are angry that we don't already have a road. That's valid that emotion. That's an okay thing to feel. And I would maybe we'll chalk it up to the new administration that doesn't have their auto response set up yet. They're a couple months new, but that window is rapidly closing.
Yeah, that's very kind of you. But to me, it's not just that we want another road. To me, and I've said this in my letter to him, it is, and I know this is gonna sound really extreme, but it is genocidal not to give us another road. Not to prioritize that, not to put that in the budget. That is sacrificing our lives. And I am hardy, I'm old, but I'm hardy. I can get myself anywhere that I need to go. But what about babies? And what about handicapped people? And what about elderly? That's not okay with me to just blow it off. It's not okay.
I hope you put your hand up on the 19th.
I just wanted to jump in a little bit. I don't want to take up too much time because I know you wanted to update some other stuff too, but a couple things that having conversations about. So the general plan, this is that vision and guiding document for the county. And it's not very specific to the road right now, but Elizabeth, you mentioned it in terms of policy and guiding policy. When we're looking at, all of communities holistically, the county definitely need to see some positive voices for the general plan. And if you have recommendations for it, I know this group has commented on it, but that's something the council is going to be picking up in the summer. You also mentioned that on here, I think, but looking for those voices to add constructive feedback to the general plan. Getting a lot of voices and a lot of emails right now saying no to the general plan in its entirety right now. And that's kind of a vocal part of the community right now. But so if it, in terms of as residents that have these constraints and stressors on yourselves, and you kind of think of other communities, what could be used for those communities as well. So when you're looking at our subdivisions and building out community, that you have recommendations that these things should be as a vision for community. In terms of the budget, there is one piece in there with the Office of Housing and Community Development. So that is adding potential space and a mini loop road on Kamakoa. So some other capacity down there. At the same time, while that's moving, that's there in the capital budget side, Office of Housing is pretty reticent and concerned about adding capacity in that part of the community without these other sort of, ingress, egress, and safe routes to evacuate spaces. So yes, while they're, thinking of growth and capacity and the demand of housing, they're still concerned at the same time. So that'll be an interesting conversation to have when they come before council. So that process, just kind of a quick overview. And we had a brief meeting with some of the budget managers in the county. In April, we're going to have the first round of the budget hearings. So it'll be kind of the first full week in April. haven't seen the structure of when the different departments will come before council, but an opportunity for them to talk about their programs and then also kind of more or less request why they need these sort of numbers for their different programs. So all programs across the board, right? And then one of those is Public Works that really looks at our our roads and infrastructure, that piece of infrastructure. I am having a meeting with the Director of Public Works on Friday. And this is one of those pieces that I will be asking him specifically about, costs. I'll be asking him about, why this piece not kind of line up in the budget in its current phase. So those are the questions I'm going to be having with him. And then also what steps that he should be expecting from this district office in terms of amending the budget going forward. So I appreciate the conversation with Matt, Bob, and David about those possibilities and looking at different numbers and avenues within the budget. Now, just please know that the capital improvements budget is more or less a wish list. So it's nothing that's guaranteed. And so even though there's that an amendment made or a request made by a department, we still have to find the funding mechanisms for those pieces. But I will do my darndest to, make those amendments possible. And I want to have that like a very candid and frank conversation with Director Ono about this, to see what are the possibilities there and kind of set like a timeline for these avenues. When it comes before council, this is also an opportunity to provide testimony on the budget and different pieces of the budget. So you can testify in that first round in April, but it will have a second round as well before it reaches May, well, kind of in the May timeframe. So there'll be opportunities to kind of testify and provide feedback on the budget as it goes forward. So there's still opportunity to provide some insight and guidance from the community side of the budget. But yes, do reach out to, I would recommend speaking with the mayor and presenting these ideas next week, because this is something that the community has long asked for here in Waikōloa Village. So it's definitely to keep it on the radar with them, and it's something that they should be expecting to come in the budget as well. So that's, yep.
Once you have those dates for the April council budget meetings where you think it might be good for us to provide testimony, will you just share that, somehow connect us to those dates so we can make sure someone's there?
So the first, I'll just tell you because I don't know that we haven't set the council hasn't set the breakdown of what department appears on what day, but just for your awareness, the first rounds of the special finance committees will be held, excuse me, the 8th of April through the 11th of April. So it'll be 4 days in a row with the different departments. Yep. Yep. Well, it'll be held, that's going to be held in Hilo that day. They'll also allow testimony in the Kona chambers, but also in District 9, we have 2 remote testimony sites at the Waimea Council office and then also up in Kapa'au.
And I would add that it's not only the people who are in this room who should be testifying, but everyone else that you could, I apologize that my back is to you, that everyone else that you could encourage to do so. One of the privileges I think we forget in Hawaii is that voices really do matter. Not just letters, but voices. Testimony is important, and the council hears this testimony. So it is incredibly urgent that not just the people who are in this room say something, but everyone else that you can gather needs to be saying something as well. This is where one united voice is great, but it takes many, many voices to make that united voice heard. So we need the testimony, please.
Okay, let's move on to some developer updates. I want to see Mr. David.
David, you want to do it or you want me to do it? I want to do it. Yeah. Thanks, Brad. So the developers told us back in December that they were starting to cut a new evacuation route up on the north end of the village that will eventually turn into the 2-lane road along the Kamakoa path. And we were under the impression that once the
permits got put in, it would take about 6 months to finish that, and we would have basically a second Hulu evacuation road. It's still stuck in the permitting system. If you go, you can find it. The permits have been submitted. If you go through the Epic system on the county side, you can find the grading permit is there. But it looks like it's stalled out, and I don't know, I don't have any new details on this, but it appears to be caught up in the shifty historic preservation and archaeological environmental assessment phase of the whole thing. So I don't know how long that's going to take, but that's where that's at, and that's the thing that we discovered just in the last month, and we wanted to share with you all. And now you all have that information too.
We'll keep you updated, but we're
yeah.
moving up on the May 2024 groundbreaking. You'll have this new evacuation road within a year. Deadline that I don't remember. So thank you for the update. And Matthew, we talked about this in the last meeting, but do you have an update on the RFP?
It's been released. The RFP for the evacuation study has been released by Civil Defense, and they're accepting bidders right now. And we will have more about that, but that's exciting. We've been waiting for that for quite a while. So we're all very thrilled to hear about that. Additional safety thing, the sirens have begun. Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. I'm sorry. I apologize. Yes, James.
Just wanted to add to that, stepping into the office, there was, over the past couple months, I think I received a letter from, it was the Public Works. There was some confusion because they have the RFP went out for Waikōloa specifically, but Public Works is also doing it for other communities at large. So
Public Works or Civil Defense?
Well, in partnership.
Okay.
But they're kind of reaching out for other grant monies to kind of do analysis of other communities.
Cool, that's great.
But they had mentioned Waikōloa in their request.
Yeah.
So I submitted a letter to go after that and then kind of push for other communities. But Waikōloa was also mentioned in that one, so there was.
Perfect. And that reminds me, one of the things that we've always been saying is that we don't want to be in competition with everyone else. We want to serve as a model or as a partner for the other communities, because we know there's so many that don't have a second road also, and we want to figure out a way that we all can be safe, and we don't want to be stealing money from other people. So yes, Bob.
Study the evacuation traffic. I asked them whether or not they were going to include an assessment of what get a second road. And he looked at me, it was shocked. Who would think this? Like what? Like who would think this? It's clearly not within the scope of what they're planning. And it seems to me that the analysis that they do with one road, the one thing, I mean, it should include a second road so that you've got a baseline case without the second road, and an analysis that shows what happens to evacuation when we have a second road. And then any evacuation plan that's designed for just one road is going to be irrelevant to this community if we then build the second road. I mean, it's not going to be a useful document. So to the extent that any of you have an opportunity to have a conversation with anybody about what goes into this study, at least mention that it should include a second or this option for the community.
Yeah, so if I can, I went back and read the RFP since we last time. And it's a very, very simple.
I am really putting you on so people can see who's talking.
It's a very, very simple RFP that basically says, it doesn't specify what they're supposed to do. It asks them to tell the county what they should do, okay? And it does make reference to future growth, okay? So it doesn't explicitly say a second road, but it says they have to account for future growth. And I think what we have to do at this operation, yeah, I think what we have to do at this point, the bids are due back on the 24th. We'll see what they propose, because honestly, there's a lot of way to do RFPs. They chose to do one that was basically tell us what we should do, as opposed to telling the bidders, this is what we want you to do. So we'll just have to see how it goes.
And we'll be engaged with that process. So we'll definitely make sure that whatever firm does do it hears from us. I promise you that.
It wasn't intelligence.
Got it.
So,
Yes, Stephanie.
To just speak to that statement about competition. and maybe reframe it in the way that we orient our minds towards that concept, not wanting to compete, because I don't really see the community organization and the coordinated effort that we're doing here as being competitive with anybody. I don't know what other communities are doing, but what I really see is the opportunity to create a dynamic and effective model
Yep.
that will then infect other communities so that they feel more confident to do what we're doing here.
I couldn't agree anymore. And the reason I said no competition, it's presented that way sometimes just because there's only so much money. There's only so much of a pot of money and we're asking for a lot of it. And so people will say, okay, you guys get all of this. We've got to cut something from somewhere else. And I don't like that framing. And I love the way you just post that. So thank you. Next item agenda, the sirens have started being installed. They are dug out and they're put in concrete, but I see Julia saying things. Do you have updates on that? James and Julia, do you know exactly what's going on, where we're at on the sirens? Okay, so if anyone didn't hear that, it said the rebar is deficient from Talmadge. So I'm sure that's a bigger delay right there.
Nothing they get hurt, and they put it in the cement. I didn't post it.
You didn't turn out. But I asked that. I asked that a lot of people that.
Well, we have a note to check up on the status of the sirens then. I'm sorry that I can't provide it in the room right now, but we will look at that.
And there's, I've elevated so crucially, but like, there's a point where this is actually dangerous for. We're past that point. Well, we are, but like, I mean. We waited, what does this level up to? I mean, this could be a question next week. With the names, with great.
Yeah.
Indeed.
All right.
Yes, please. I'm going to pass to Elizabeth for 1 second
Just
here.
real quick, so I have a little one with the childcare exchange I gotta get to in Javi. So I'm gonna take off, but I also want to welcome continued conversation, and you can reach us whenever, you know, it makes sense. Lots of you know how to reach me, but so do you. So we can just stay in conversation.
Yeah.
And then as things come up, I'm listening because we're now working at a higher, like, zoom out, how can we affect the most change for the most people kind of thing, but we always wanted to tap back down into what each community really is caring about so that we can get the most bang for the buck on the things people care about. So I appreciate that. So anyway, I can be involved or share with you what we're doing or however that works out. I just wanted to say thank you, and I'm going to take off, but it's not because I don't care.
Thank you for coming and presenting, and thank you for talking earlier. I really appreciate it. Okay. They're done.
The next item, I don't want to spend.
Yes.
You know, and let everyone in the room don't lose an idea that we're talking about in very, very early stages of conversation. Those of us who attended the Wildfire Summit, saw another community, I don't think I want to say it was on the water, but now I don't remember, where they did a community green waste event, where was it a walk?
I think so.
I don't remember. And it was put on by Firewise. So they basically, Firewise and HWMO helped to fund green waste bins that were brought into the community to sort of encourage people to clean up around their house, and maybe people who can't do the drive to the transfer stations or who need some help picking up green waste from their home, if this would encourage people to sort of work on their defensible space. So we're talking about it. We've reached out to our Waikōloa Firewise. Unfortunately, the chair is on vacation for, I think, a month. So we're not going to be able to really connect with her for a while. And this would be a large event with a lot of planning. So we have a big capacity question that we have to think through. If we have the capacity as a community, I know that Shelley let us know that they have done similar events in the past, and she's sort of been giving us a reality check about how much work is involved, which is really always good to go in with eyes wide open. So if anyone wants to grab one of us after, if you want to continue, if that piqued your interest, if you want to talk more about it, that's something we're all talking about right now behind the scenes.
Done.
Perfect. Great. I didn't give Serena enough time to prepare a financial update, but we were gonna share our fundraising numbers with you all. I think we got $80 at the last market, which was very exciting, which we'll use for our event coming up at the end of April for light refreshments for the community. But we're gonna skip the financial update for today, if that's okay with everybody in the interest of time. And
We're not
then
making a lot of money. We're
Eight-
making
it was a great showing at the market.
Base funds.
And then online, we have our new platform up for official tax deductible donations now that we're a nonprofit. So we're sharing that out with larger investors who maybe want to invest in the work that we're all doing. So please feel free to share that out. And then Matthew, I'll have you tee up.
Oh, sure, so, I'll just go down, we have a couple of opportunities for everyone. I'm gonna skip the top story unless anyone has a specific thing they wanna add in there, if they want in the room. You know how to contact us, and we like talking, so it's fine. There are 3 things going on, 2 things actively going on right now, where you can provide feedback, to the government and, private companies. First, AES is building a gigantic new solar farm up at the top of Waikōloa Road, right across from the art right there. It's gonna be an 86 megawatt project. Is it been approved? Well, it's in the PUC process right now, but we had a conversation, we had a phone call with them 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, something like that. And right now they are accepting feedback about where their community benefits package money is gonna go. It's gonna be a total of $258,000 a year. It's not coming online until 2030. So this is not a rush at all, but if anyone wants to make their opinion heard, they are actively soliciting input on that, and they both share that out. So you know about that. The second thing is Hawaii Department of Transportation is currently updating their long-range transportation plan. And they are soliciting feedback on this one very actively. There are 2 forms. There's one that's a survey. The other is a little map that you can go through. I filmed a little video and posted it on different social platforms. If you have not done so yet, please do. It's very easy. You literally click on a little Google map and drop a pin down. We want a second road here. We need sidewalks here. We need paving here, whatever. It's quite intuitive, and it works best on a computer, not on like a phone or a tablet. So there's that. And then, as James already mentioned, the long range, not the long range.
I just.
Oh, sorry, yes,
I
sorry.
just want to add one little bit of detail.
Please.
About the
Yes.
transportation planning process. The state has put together some background documentation on the factors that feed into their decision to identify roads that are actually needed. And their assessment of the population here in the village is far smaller than what is actually happening. And what is in the county planning documents for the village. So the planning documents anticipate that the village will ultimately reach 22,000. That's the current build out. And the transportation plan is for the next 20 years, 2045. And it does not account for that level of growth. So they are underestimating the amount of traffic that will be generated within the village. And even by underestimating the amount of traffic, they are still saying they're ranking Waikōloa Road as a red category road segment, which means that it will exceed capacity under some circumstances, mainly during the afternoon commute hour, between 3 and 5. So when you make your comments, you can include those points, and I will be documenting all of this in a written document that we're going to submit on behalf of our organization. And once that's prepared, it'll be posted on our website. You'll all be able to see what we've done and have access to that data, because I know that stuff is nerd rich stuff. None of you should spend any time digging into it, but I just want you to know that we are digging into it and that we'll make that available.
There's a lot of learning.
Yes.
So how could we all sign that or show that there's people backing it opposed to,
Well,
I don't know, petition? I
No,
don't know.
so we'll sign it with our organization name, with Wildfire Safety Advocates of Waikōloa, and
but it's
We'll be a part
better,
of that.
it's better than, instead of just adding names to one document. As I was saying before, and my wife. It's really better if you just pile on with your own message. And it can be just a sentence saying, this plan doesn't recognize how much growth is gonna happen here. We really need a second road and you should prioritize that. That should be your message, just 2 sentences, right? But to have more counts, more messages coming in is ultimately more important than you're signing what we write.
Did you guys consider in talking about the DKI extension? Where even though it's federal, I mean.
support it. Every
Yeah,
time I had a conversation about it, I've asked that it kisses Waikōloa. I don't know where that's going.
Yeah.
We've never been serious about it, but yeah.
Yeah.
But that's also like
Take a little
fighting
heat
for
off
dollars,
Waikōloa.
right? Because if we have to have county pay for that or the state pay for that, then we lose money on it. So
It's state fed.
I know, so, yeah.
We're not gonna get any state funds for our.
Okay.
It's DOD money too.
Thank you, Bob, for that extra detail and adding, and the other place where we'll soon be able to provide feedback, as James mentioned, the general plan will be coming before county council here in the next couple of months, and we will be making it very evident and directing people towards where they can share information about that. We have 4 upcoming events right now. One we were just popped up here in the city. First one, next Wednesday, the community meeting with the mayor. Please, everyone come. Please, everyone ask questions. Please show up and let them know how important wildfire stuff is for the village. Yes.
And I'd like to challenge everyone not to just show up, but to grab your neighbor too.
Yeah.
You know, maybe then we could double
They have-
presents, grab a friend,
Yeah.
make sure.
Carpool.
Carpool, yeah,
Grab a spouse.
yeah, grab your partner.
There were 170 people at the YMA one. It was literally standing room only. And we could fit more people than that in the gym. I don't know if we're gonna get more people than that here in Waikōloa, but.
Yeah, I didn't
I
attend.
think we should, so I think what we can do, we're gonna get.
There you go. Yeah, and oh, sorry, go ahead, David. I was gonna say, I didn't attend the Waimea one, but I watched the whole video of it, and the mayor does a really good job of trying to answer everyone's questions, and he gives really honest and direct responses to the best of his ability. So if you are someone, or if you know someone who doesn't like long meetings, I watched the whole 1 hour thing and it flew by because of his energy and the way that he tries to really answer every question. It's worth our time to go, and it's just informative and interesting.
I was just to say, because I did send the meeting by next month, and it is engaging, he is engaging with people, and his, directors are there, a big portion of them, I would say that on my committee, I'm not sure my name will show up, but a lot of them are there. And, he defers and he engages them, so, the road is important, and everybody asking or saying we need a new road is, they get that, and it's, you guys are all smart people and hard about things, but it's, bringing it up in a way to say, ask a question that goes to planning director, ask a question that goes, when you're talking about the emergency plans, that's going to civil defense. So that they get, that it's not myopic, it's not just a one thing, that they get it. But they're very engaging, he's engaging, the directors are, and it gives an opportunity to kind of cover it in a diverse way, is what I would also recommend thinking about it, is to come up with, we have people that are talking about a lot of things that are specific on the road, but it's hitting it from emergency plans and, wildfire safety and all the other things. It gets that message out there.
Yeah.
I would encourage you.
Yes, thank you. Okay, tomorrow.
Hey, Matthew.
Sorry, okay, another thing on, sorry, I apologize.
Was the fire escape road that you guys are trying to get, was that underneath a cultural study or something?
Yeah, so right now, the new road that's gonna come in eventually is gonna go out to Kamakoa and up by the skate park, where there's a gate right there. And it's, the first half of it is gonna be composed of surface streets and the Kamakoa Workforce Housing Project that is gonna be put in that area. It's about 800 new units. reaching down to about the wastewater treatment plant. You go look on Google Maps, that's sort of the visual. From that wastewater treatment plant down to the Queen K Highway, that is currently the responsibility of the developers of Nanakai. That whole new luxury subdivision is going in at the north end of the village. They have committed verbally to us that they are going to be building a 1-lane emergency egress route that's very similar to the Hulu evacuation road that exists right now, with like a chip seal and whatnot, but that requires a grading permit. If you drive past, so you can see where it's going to spit out on the Queen K. If you drive down and look up Mount about a mile south of Puoko, you'll see a gate. You'll see they've started digging some up there to do sighting and whatnot. But they are required to get a permit for mass grading. That permit is the one that is currently tied up in what we think is shifting permitting, but honestly, it's really hard to tell because we're not one of the.
Was there any chance of it connecting to Maunalani Drive?
No. No chance on that, but there is a chance that if Ainalea ever gets restarted down there across from Maunalani, it's not just about that. If that ever gets restarted, that they would increase the capacity of Hulu from a single lane road to a full 2-lane road for construction traffic.
Yeah, the only reason why you look straight up from Maunalani Drive, you got a road already up there, that's why.
Yeah. There's a couple of like utility access roads and stuff like that are out there.
But where the Kamakoa Drive extension comes out, it's north of the fire station. Correct. So it's well north of the Maunalani Drive.
Yeah.
It doesn't even come close.
But Maunalani was supposed to do their own one.
It's about 3 miles.
I know I was supposed to do their own one, which comes from.
Yeah, and the next thing that I got, is there any way to stop the development, more development in this area?
Exactly.
Because if we put a stop to it,
we'll see where we're going. So we're not quite there yet.
It's time to get vocal with that. You know,
beach chair.
I agree with you with the protocol and everything on that.
That's a question for the mayor.
It's a question for the mayor. Yeah.
Put that out next week.
So.
How many years you guys been at
I think you
this?
should
And I just moved to Venice a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah, about 18 months is how long we've been at this, and so the short answer to your question is that the new development that's going up there is currently contractually allowed to build 276 units before they are required to do any infrastructure improvements whatsoever. And that's based upon a development agreement that was signed by Mitch Roth in 2021. And so the way we would stop it is by suing, and that costs money. And that also slows things down because the best way to get the road built is for the developers to do it themselves. Because we wouldn't have to go through the county permitting process and the public bidding and all of that. We want the developers to do it. We really, really, really do. We don't want to slow them down in doing it, but if they're gonna like do a bait and switch on us or something like that, we're ready to fight, right? But we're not there yet, right? We're still at the point where we're trying to push and encourage it and work together collaboratively. But what you're suggesting, absolutely on the table, and is something we discussed and is definitely the stick at the end of the thing. It's also the reason we get our phone calls answered, because the only thing we can do, literally the only thing we can do is throw sand in the ears. Like, we don't have any actual way, we're not writing a check for $20 million, right? So we don't have a real good way of accelerating the thing. So we're there to try to make sure they don't.
There's gotta be ways to block new development from coming in.
Yeah, no,
You know, well, you know, we should be thinking about that as another asset for us to.
Absolutely, yeah.
I
To do
think
that.
that's what I inferred that James was alluding to when you were talking about the housing department being a little bit hesitant about.
Yeah, I mean, that's internal with the county for sure.
Sure, but if that seed is sort of being planted.
Yeah, I mean, and that's for the county owned parcels though. I mean, these landowners have been, sat on it for a long time. Have had entitlements for a long time, 40 years, all these different spaces waiting for the right market sort of levers. Ainalea has gone through bankruptcy court many times, looking for new funders. So if you want to fund them, and they have a new people kind of come in and go, and that's the challenge.
Is there a way they can get eminent domain on it?
that is
As
one
an
of those
escape
avenues.
route for
That is one of
Waikōloa.
those avenues, it does take it through the court system and it, yeah, they do get paid out at some point. Yeah, but it is one of those mechanisms that the county could pursue.
I would think that would.
If-
that would
if-
be-
Well, if we need to, so eminent domain, if we start going down that path, that adds another 3-4 years. Right? Because the court,
Yeah.
like, so it might happen, but we don't know. Yeah, we're trying to do it without making that.
I know, but you know, so many people playing this game
Yeah.
with our lives.
Exactly, you're totally right.
Yeah, and-
So the one benefit I would say is I would be beyond dumbfounded if a new PUD was signed for a new large development without infrastructure tied to it. And I can guarantee you, I will personally fight against that. I don't know about the whole organization or where we would go, but like, I don't see another large scale agreement being signed without that tied on to it. And also, the current PUD, the current development agreement that is allowing Nanakai to put this in, has been through 4 different amendments. They're on their 4th one. They have a 5th one on the table. I would find it very difficult to believe that this current administration will sign a 5th amendment without some significant concessions on the infrastructure side. Again, I don't know exactly all the negotiations and where all that would go and everything. But I don't see a world in which there's big scale development that gets authorized and approved after we have made so much noise.
Right.
Around this. So.
The only reason why is I written to the previous mayor,
Yeah.
to this mayor.
Yeah.
And I've also written to the governor.
Yeah.
And then I stated all the fire hazards and everything like that, but you know, I got nothing back
No, yeah.
except for a thumbs up from this mayor.
Yeah. We got thumbs up.
That was it.
But I think that that's a great question for you to ask on the 19th to the mayor, to his face, excuse me, in a room full of people.
Oh,
Who
yeah.
I bet you will be nodding their heads right along with you.
So that's the big event. Everyone, please come, bring friends, ask questions, do that. Tomorrow evening, Jill Takuda is hosting a telephone town hall. Then she's gonna have another one, I think, on
The
the
29th.
29th, right?
Yes,
And-
it's 11 to 10 to 11 or 11 to 12.
Oh, I don't have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's literally just it.
Calacaty High School.
Yeah,
10 to 11.
We'll have that one on. On April 30th, we are co-hosting with James. We're gonna bring Chief Kazuo Todd in for a big talk story. That was gonna be at the elementary school. We're gonna try and advertise that a lot, so we have a bunch of people coming out and talking to the chief and asking questions. And then Hiko, we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna have a big talk story with them in June. Also probably at the school, but we're not positive about that one quite yet. We haven't reserved the school for that. So we're gonna have 2 big groups out talking about things. And we also, you know, our next meeting is gonna be on April 9th. We're gonna have people from the county Office of Sustainability, Climate, Equity and Resilience here to talk about that component of everything. Our May guests are gonna be the fire crew from Waikōloa for PTA. Talking about how they contribute to our safety and talking about some of their history in the region. And then, like I said earlier, the next one that I have scheduled right now is in September. We're gonna have Stacy Sugimura from the Hawaii Insurance Bureau talking to us. That one, he'll be remote because he's good at that one a lot. But I'm really looking forward to that one a lot. That was one of the most interesting conversations I've had in a while yesterday. That'll be great. Is there anything anyone else wants to add? We're at almost 2 hours right here. Julia's got something to say.
I just wanted to say holy lahan out to the wildfire safety advocates of Waikōloa. You just made your 1-year birthday.
It's our 1-year birthday.
Showing up, doing it.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be able to do it without you. You are a vital part of the whole thing.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Stick around, ask questions to anyone.
Yeah, but thank you for sticking around to call people. I appreciate you guys. Bye.
Oh, you, okay.